Welcome back, everyone, to Public Affairs. I am your host, Kaylee Aiken, and today I have two very special guests here at COACB, John Aiken and Tyler Amburgey. So why don't you guys tell the audience a little bit about yourselves and how you ended up at TV 39? John?
Well, I guess I'll start. My father was David Aiken, his wife, Carolyn Aiken, my mom and dad, your grandma and grandpa, and how I got here is actually kind of a little bit of a long story. But the one thing, I grew up with, dad and TV, and because that was dad's ministry. I mean, first off, dad was at foremost a minister. This is his Bible, and you can see in there all the different notes and things in there about, he was out there preaching the gospel. One of the greatest commandments of all is to go out and to preach to the nations. And the best way that he could find to do that is through the means of television. They started off in 1980. What happened was Dad, you remember Grandpa was in the military, okay? And he would talk about stories about being in Germany. And basically Dad's job while he was there in the military was if anybody had any type of radio, whether you can bring it in by foot, walk a little walkie-talkie, or whether you have maybe on a vehicle or however, it's Dad's job to fix it. And that's what Dad's job. He was the radio technician and basically to fix it. Well, when Dad got out of the military, he went in there and served his tour, over in Germany, and he wanted to come back home to be with Mom, and that's how that began and stuff like that. But while Dad was in the military, Dad was a minister and still is a minister, and he wanted to be out and preach the nation, and he had the idea he wanted to actually record church services. Because he was a firm believer of churches, no matter a size, should be able to have an outreach, a Christian ministry outreach. So what happened was Dad ended up coming to J.C. Penney's. And back when Penney's was a store, it's not anymore, but back when Penney's was a store, they actually had, a whole table full of these old CB radios. And they were broken. It says on here, broken, make an offer. Well, what Dad being a radio technician, he's like, well, I could fix those. I can make some money. So basically what happened was Dad took those old CB radios and he repaired them. And as he was telling me, he said, I did really well with them, because, when you're buying them for pennies on the dollar and repairing them and then you can resell them. That's when CB radios were big and hot and stuff like that in the late 70s, early 80s. What happened was they ended up Dad was down to one CB radio left. And there was a guy that had an old black and white camera. And he's like, I'll trade you the black and white camera for that CB radio. And Dad thought about it, prayed about it and whatnot, and said, we'll go ahead and do that. So with did a little bit of horse trading. They ended up with a black and white camera, and that's how you saw the first Word of Truth TV broadcast.
Tyler, how did you end up at TV 39?
Well, I have been here as a volunteer. I came down here for a gospel sing. A group that was coming from the church came down here and said, hey, we're singing at the TV station in Marion. Why don't you come down? And I said, hey, I've always loved television and radio and such. I'm like, well, I'll go down. So I sat there in one of the seats, and David Aiken came up to me. Oh, I tell you what, he was a fellow that you could not forget.
Sure.
And I'm telling you, I still remember it to this day. He said, I want to show you something. That was his famous lines. I want to show you something. He showed me a lot of stuff that night.
Sure.
And I started coming down here periodically and helping him with some things. And it's been almost 10 years since I started here as a volunteer. And now I give the Lord all the praise and the glory. Absolutely. That I am here as a full-time employee. As the operations manager, and I take care of, first of all, I help John, do my absolute best to try to help him, but I also, try to make sure all the programs and everything go out over the air. But it's just amazing, and I'm thankful to be here. Now, like I said, going on 10 years, I'm just thankful and grateful that this opportunity has came and kind of fell in my lap.
So, John, would you like to tell the audience some more history about TV 39 and how you ended up here?
How I ended up here is actually kind of a long story. Every once in a while, you think you have your life planned out. Have you ever, you think when you first get born and you go through school and college and all that, you're thinking, I got my plan in life plotted out and here's how I'm going to go. So I went to Ohio State and ended up getting a degree in economics. Went on, got my MBA in government administration. And how I actually started here was basically they were in the middle of expansion during when they had the Marion and Delaware station. The Delaware station, Dad was saying he didn't have enough time to, we had 2 stations. You didn't have enough time to keep on going back and forth. And he said, would you be interested in doing it? And I said, well, here's the thing about it. I'm going to school. I'm going to school for, economics. I'm trying to get into banking. Because the one thing about money, I like money. And the one thing I've yet to meet a very much of a poor banker. That's the one thing about it. So I said, I wanted to get into banking. So the one thing I said, I'll do it on a 1-year commitment. So that way, after 1 year, I'll have my MBA and life will be good and, no problems. I can leave with no hurt feelings because I did, I'll give the Lord all the glory. I worked my hardest, did my best and tried to help out where I could. Well, what happened was life happened. I don't know how else to put it other than that. We were in the middle of, that was about 2008. And that was when the economy started going real south. That's when a lot of people lost 401k plans. They went plummeting. Housing prices went in the toilet. Gas prices were up. And the one thing about being at a Christian not-for-profit, donations went way down. I mean, way down. They were down almost 70% of what they normally were. And then that's how we did the funding of our organization was mostly through donations. And that's when we started doing things like Lights, Camera, Shop to help pay the bills and stuff like that. But the one thing about it, how I started, that's at the same time that was going on, Dad ended up having pancreatitis attacks. And it got to the point where he was on his 6th pancreatic attack or whatnot in 2 months. And the doctor said, Dave, I think it's time. I can get you disability and you can go ahead and retire. And so that 1-year commitment was now 20 some years ago. A little bit over 20 years ago now I think about it. And the one thing, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Because the one thing about it is I get to see all the lives that get impacted with this station. And, about the history of the station, I mean, we started in 1980, is when we were founded. They had W39AQ, started off as a very small station. We're talking 1,295 watts. Okay. In terms today, that W39AQ turned into COACB, which we operate at 15,000 watts now. So we're talking, it was at 1,295 watts. What did that, broadcasting at 180 foot on that tower. You're not getting out very far. I'll be the first to admit it. But it was serving pretty much Marion County, about 66,000 people. But the one thing is about it is you're impacting lives. People that can't get out to church like they used to, we can bring church to their home. And then also, we have things like prayer line. How many prayer requests do we get on prayer line? We get phone calls a lot. We had that. And what can I say, but God's blessed us all throughout the time. Where basically it started off with a station in W39AQ. Then what happens? They got TV 56, ended up being 42 in Delaware. Then we ended up, expanding again, thinking, God, thank you for everything you've done. But he said, I'm not done yet. I'm not done blessing that Christian organization yet. And then all of a sudden you get the station in Columbus, Ohio, WGCT. And I remember before Dad died, we had the analog, this is when I remember you starting, when we went from the analog to digital conversions. And we ended up acquiring the station up in Ashland, Ohio. And to where we were, one station became 2 stations, became 3, then it became 4. But the one thing about it, God's not done yet, because we got more exciting things to talk about. And I don't want to be using all the time here. I'm sure we got other things to talk about. And but the one thing about it, we've been, all along the way, God's been blessing this station and blessing this ministry. And it's only because of your help out there, not just you out there, donating or helping us out with auctions and telethons and things like that, but also praying for us. And I'm a firm believer in the power of prayer, and I've seen prayer do some miraculous things. People that were on hospice is no longer on hospice, and kids that have leukemia don't have leukemia, and it's just a wonderful thing.
I like to actually build off of what John was saying there.
Go ahead.
He brought up a little more about how I started here and ended up, and it was actually just, I look back and I'm thinking, how the Lord's Spirit, because, it says the Lord will, go before you and open doors that, you can't open by yourself. Is one day I got a phone call. I was volunteering. I was not an employee. I was a volunteer here, and it really wasn't even often. I only came down maybe 2 or 3 different times. And I got a phone call from David Aiken one day, and I answered him like, "Hello," and he's like, "Tyler, old buddy." He's like, I have a I don't know if he said proposal or a opportunity or something. He said, "I have something." He said, "We got that station up there in Ashland, W33BW."
W33BW.
And he said, "We're going to change that over to digital and all that stuff." But he said, "It'd probably take you a little bit less time to get there if something for some reason stopped, working or whatnot." So he said, "Next time you come down, if you're willing to do it," he said, "I'm going to give you a key and I'm going to give you some instructions that if the station goes off the air, reset it." I am a 19-year-old kid. Let's just put it that way. 19-year-old kid. And I told my dad that, and my dad looked at me and he said, "Man, how they trust you." Yeah. He said, "They are giving you a key. They barely know you. If they don't even know you at all," he said, "they're giving you a key and telling you how to turn on and turn off a transmitter." And he's like, that's God right there. And I can still yet say it's God. And how, like I said before, how I ended up at this spot, literally, I sometimes sit, in my living room at home, and I'm thinking to myself, like, how did I get here? It's like, wow, how the Lord has blessed me to be where I'm at and doing what I'm doing. And the thing about it is I get to come in, and now there is stressful days. There is days that stuff is just, this stream's off, that station's off, whatever. But then there's other days that you're just able to just say, "Thank you, Lord." Yeah. Everything is up and running. Everything is
Those are the good days.
Yeah, those are the good days.
Those are the good days.
But, I still yet love to come in. And like I said, there is still stressful days because there is times that, things just break.
But also going back, how did you end up being here? As I said, I came with the idea I was going to go into banking. When you go to get an MBA, you have to put down what your concentration is going to be. I said, I'm going to go in for government administration. And here, the one thing that happened was we had COVID happening. Mm-hmm. Do you remember COVID? No one could go outside. The one thing they did do during COVID, Small Business Administration, thank you, Small Business Administration and others, they created ways for businesses to apply for grants and low interest loans. Sometimes when you look back at your life, why did I go to school for banking? Well, I tell you what, because I'm thinking, if I knew I was going to be coming to the TV station, I would have chose a different career, maybe in computer programming, networking, video editing, or something else. But the one thing about it is during that time when we had our lowest parts, I was able to help go through there and say, well, we need to apply for this grant and this grant. And we were getting grants approved, and, we were doing okay. And, the one thing, we kept on growing. And it's pretty awesome where we're at. But if you look back at it, why did I take all those business classes and take all those finance classes? Well, I kind of found out why, and that's kind of awesome when you think about it. So,
absolutely. So, Tyler, what factors do you take into consideration when you're scheduling programs, since you're our operations manager?
Well, when I take a look at the schedule, one of the things that I like to look at is, number one, what kind of audience is going to be watching at this moment in time. So, you have the people that work the 9-to-5 jobs. So you have the older, retired, shut-ins and things like that. So we like to put some programs in there that would best fit them. Like our prayer line program, though, is alive, and it's right there at the perfect moment that people just got done watching the evening news.
Yeah.
They're not quite ready to go to bed yet, but they're right there in the middle. And also, here's the thing. If they did have a rough day, they're at 7:30 Monday through Friday. They can call in and have the people live praying for them on the prayer line program, and that's just one of them. But when you're talking about stuff in the middle of the night, because that's something that you think of, let's say a mother up rocking her baby at middle of the night, or someone came home after a long day of work because they work second shift, or someone just can't sleep. I have had sleepless nights, I'm telling you. And to turn on Christian, family-friendly programming and to find a uplifting message at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is, what they say, the dead of night at 3 o'clock in the morning. When I look at those schedules, I think, okay, what kind of audience what kind of audience are we wanting to attract, or what kind of audience are we wanting to touch at that point and reach? And so, it's kind of a little simple answer. I know it's a short answer, but the thing about it is sometimes short, sweet, straight to the point.
Sure, but also some of our programs are a little bit different. Once again, as I said, back in 1980, we were founded, and it wasn't just Dad. There was, Frank O'Brien, Brad Richardson, Elder Shuck, and numerous people helped us along the way. But it was basically the idea of going out and recording church services and putting them on, at that time, public access TV when we first started. But, later on, when we actually started broadcasting on TV, giving those churches an outlet. So like when we go looking for programs, because I'll go trying to help Tyler find some more programs and stuff like that. And the one thing that we do is we do things quite a bit different. Is, we keep our airtime rates as low as we possibly can. I've been told that we are the cheapest in the industry. I've been told that by numerous people.
You take pride in that, too.
I do take pride in that, because we take, when you donate to the TV station, or somebody has they rent our big old tower out back here, 349-foot tower. What we do is we take the funds that we get from that to keep our airtime rates as low as possible, so it's not as much of a hindrance on the local churches. And that's why you find a lot of local churches that'll come on our stations, and you can see like the Bucyrus Nazarene Church on Sundays, and twice on Sundays actually. Actually, it might be more than that. And you'll see that on there. You'll see miscellaneous other churches, and from people from all across the nation. A lot of them are a little bit smaller congregations, which I find uplifting. I found where I found Jesus was in a small church. I don't know about a lot of other people, but that's where I'm at, and that's why I like to try to highlight it. And even if your church isn't able to afford a $60 program, we have things like Spotlight on Churches, where, if the camera would swing over that way, you'd see all the camera cases. Basically, it's where we got camera gear, where we set up a camera with a microphone, an external microphone, so that way you can pick up the services really well. And then basically recording cards, batteries, and stuff like that, so you can record a church service. And we actually broadcast them for free. And how many are we up to on those? Spotlight on Churches.
I lost count, to be honest.
See, I tell you, there's quite a few.
And the thing about it is those are the kind of programs that we play in the middle of the night. Like you were saying, yes, the Voice of the Nazarene, I think it's Voice of the Nazarene.
Voice of the Nazarene. Yeah.
I've gone blank for a second. But the Nazarene Church in Bucyrus, yes, they play twice on Sunday, but they also play at that 1 or 2, 3 o'clock in the morning spot in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Along with the Spotlight on Churches, that the local churches, and it's not just, one denomination, is all different kinds of denominations.
Yeah, that's true. We even have Sunday Mass. Yeah, because there's a church actually out of New York that we reached out, wanted to be on our station. Absolutely, we'll find spaces for it. And we got that on there. And I don't know, we're got a little bit of a different schedule than other people, but you know what? I embrace it. I think that's nice. So that way, we try to highlight all the different ministries out there. And we even have more coming up, because there's one, Voice in the Wilderness. I just got an email from her, Maria, wanting to start up, and I think it's on a Monday or whatnot. We're getting new programs, it seems like each and every day, because as we start reaching more and more places, we're getting found out by more and more people. And so like we have Brother Lombardi, which is out of the Canton area. And so, I mean, that's another one that we're reaching out to and others. And so, I mean, it's exciting to see where we're at and where we're headed.
Speaking of programs, if someone were interested in having a program at COACB, how would they go about that, John?
Well, it's pretty easy. Swing on by and grab a cup of coffee, and we'll sit down and have a chat a little bit. But the one thing about it is it's a really easy process, okay? If you want to have a program, maybe your church already has some church programs that you record at your service. You record your services. Well, what I would do is I'd have Tyler help you, talk to you a little bit about how we would trim those services down to 28 minutes and 30 seconds, because that's a TV length, and we want to make sure that it would highlight that. But we also have production facilities here. So basically, what I would say more than anything, pick up the phone and give us a call. And we can see about what we can do together to get you on our stations. When we do things different in another way is we simulcast the same programming on all of our stations. Not just our stations, but also all of our internet streams, all of our apps. So that way, if you're watching on one place, one way, you'll see it on the same one everywhere else. And so, I mean, still same $60 a half hour, $100 an hour. And we try to help you, reach the masses and help us spread the gospel.
Yeah. Tyler, what are the steps of getting a program on the air?
Well, it's once again very easy. After you swing on by or you pick up the phone or stuff, and we talk. We find that perfect slot. Whether it be at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whatever. Then we just figure out how we get your programs.
Sure.
So we can set you up with on our server. So I mean, it's once again we keep we have the things here. I can set you up with an FTP or a Dropbox or those different ways you can get it. You can come, like John was saying, you can come and actually record it here. So then we have it, here. And then once, if you do record something here, we also put it on YouTube and, different places like that as well. And I'm just so thankful that the Lord is working in this. The ministries have been coming in. There's actually one we're getting ready to start, and I'm actually really excited about it. It's a teaching program. I am so excited.
Dr. V.
Yes, Dr. V.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to be recording that one, and that's one that when we were talking with him, it is just,
kindred spirit.
Yeah, I was going to say, that spirit that I was talking about earlier, there was just so much spirit flowing in there. I'm telling you what, you had to be numb to not feel it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and there's things like that. And then, once we recorded those, we put those on YouTube. He's coming here to record them. But like I said, if you want to, you have your churches streamed on Facebook or YouTube or whatnot, or you record it, then you can send it to us and we can get them on the air.
So we've talked about some of the history that's gone on here. So where has the station grown to today?
Oh, this is where it's awesome. This is where it gets me excited, okay? When we started, I remember when Dad was still living and Mom were still living, both of them. We're not to where we are now, okay? We only at that point had 6 channels. We have 10 now. 10 in Marion, Delaware, Columbus, and Ashland. And also we have a translator in Kenton. We have 10 feeds going on. Tyler, let's go ahead and count them down. All right.
We've got 39.1, which is COACB TV.
Correct.
We got Buzzer on 39.2. We've got Daystar on 39.3. We have Believer's Voice of Victory on 39.4. We have the Positive Movies, the Positive TV on 39.5. 39.6 is Shop LC. We have Radiant TV on 39.7. We have COACB Radio on 39.8. We have Greater Love TV on 39.9. And 39.10 is Fun Roads. I had to take a couple of breaths in there because there's so many of them on there.
There's a lot of them. We try to offer as much as possible. Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about where we were to where we're going. Basically, when my parents were still alive, okay, we had 4 stations: Marion, Delaware, Ashland, and Columbus. We also have a translator station in Kenton that broadcasts the same stuff that's Marion, helps us get that community a little bit better. But, we broadcast to roughly 2.7 million people. To where, what happened after that is As I said on the .7 with Radiant TV, we did a little bit of a swap where basically we said, how about this? We'll take your Radiant TV and we'll broadcast it in, those little markets of like Columbus, Ohio and stuff like that to our 2.7 million people. If you'll take our primary channel, our COACB channel, where we have all of highlight our local churches and things like that, and our local content and stuff, if we could take that and broadcast it up in Toledo at WLMB. They said, okay, let's go ahead and do it. So starting this year, we actually started broadcasting up in Toledo, okay, off of WLMB. It's now channel 35, basically up there. And right now, we are broadcasting to 5.7 million people. Woo. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. I mean, when you're going from 2.7 to 5.7, that's 2 million more people. But here's the thing. As I said, when you give God the glory for everything that you do, and you're in a broadcast ministry, trying to say, God, I'm trying to reach as many souls as we possibly can. I know there's people out there that I would love to invite to go to church with me on Sunday that I know that they won't make it. But I want to be able to go ahead and bring the church to them in their home. So that way they can find out about you there at home. God will say, I'm not done yet with y'all. I know, I see what your ministry's doing, and I'm going to bless it a little bit more. Just recently, we ended up changing one thing. We ended up broadcasting on 2 other markets. We have WIVM. It's a low-powered station there in Akron. And then we have WIVD, which is in the Canton area, on channel 34.4 and also on channel 26.4. And when you look at the broadcast map, when you see we're broadcasting to 5.7 million people, 5.7 million people, we went from a whole whopping 2.7 million people at the beginning of this year. That's where we were, 2.7 million, to where we're right now broadcasting to 5.7 million people. And the one thing about it is God's not done with us yet. I'll just say it this way. You need to serve Him and you need to know the Lord. And I'm a firm believer in that. And if you don't know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, call in the station. Even better yet, swing on by, come grab a cup of coffee, and we'll talk a little bit about it. And or the one thing about it is if maybe you're up for a reason, you're looking for some comfort. Well, I'd like to think you can turn on to our stations and find that comfort at any time of night. And so, that's just some of the tip of the iceberg of where we're at, and from where we're going next. I don't know. Well, we'll see what God has in store for us, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both for being on today. I appreciate it. And as always, you're watching Public Affairs, and I am your host, Kaylee Aiken. Thank you.